you my phone.
Court is in session with Ryan in Sacktown on If You Don't Like That. Now, Ryan in Sacktown.
Oh, must be Rhino. What is up, everybody?
Taste the biscuit.
Taste the biscuit.
Taste the goodness of the biscuit.
It's a Wednesday. What are we doing?
Taste the
It's the
butter
offseason.
spread.
Who's going to be my shitbird?
I think every team really needs what I call a shitbird.
What's up, y'all? Not a ton going on here in Kingsland, waiting for this Doug Christie thing to be finalized and decide whether or not there's going to be a press conference. But a lot more questions than answers. Kingsland, some notable things going on in sports. I'm looking at what happened with John Elway's longtime friend and agent. That is terrifying. Expect some follow-up news on that. I would probably expect that to be investigated a little bit more. If he fell out of a golf cart and they were leaving a party, but nonetheless, the loss of life. How many of us have been knuckleheads on golf carts before? It's part of golfing. You'll do it once around. You'll try to get your buddy off of the cart. You might go down a hill, up a hill. You get what I'm saying, but nothing to that level. Very sad. So anyways, what's next? What is next, y'all? What are the Kings doing? What will they do? We had Jerry on yesterday. I thought there was a lot of interesting things that came from that conversation. We can go over that. He clarified, by the way, his comments on Domantas Sabonis. Talk about the NBA playoffs. We can take your calls. If you want to take the show a different direction, do it. Just use the link that's in the chat, and you can call or scan the QR code. Let's get after it on a Wednesday. Welcome in to the King's Court. Courts in session.
Late nights on the screen, hey, it's Grant and Ryan. We bleed purple, talking hoops, never lying. Sacramento Kings, we rise and we fall. If you don't like that, then you don't know ball. Jerry sitting with the stories of the game, spilling all the truth, driving legends insane. From the Cow Palace days to Arco's roar, this town's heart beats on the hardwood floor. If you don't like that, turn away now. Kings in our blood.
What's the plan today?
Same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
Try to take over the Sacramento media market world. What's up, y'all? How you doing today on a Wednesday? Happy to be with you. Busy Wednesday here, making some decisions. A lot going on. Had to get the car thing resolved. Y'all know about that. Finally arrived at a decision. So we are making decisions on this Wednesday. What's your Wednesday been like? Hope it's going well. Kicking off a double header here on the channel. Grant, 8 o'clock. He's had some good shows as of late at 8. Him and I, we talked last night off the air after his show. Very interesting. And I'm not going to share anything from that. But I think there is something that we are not necessarily pointing out in terms of Scott Perry. And I'm going to point it out. I don't mind talking about it. And whether it's fair to him or not, it needs to be said. So we will get to that. But Grant will be taking your calls again tonight, 8 o'clock. BJ has called in a couple of times. Keep it coming. Keep the calls coming. So anyways, we wait. We wait. We are in that holding pattern. And we look at the rest of the NBA starting to maneuver a ton of conversations around Giannis and Antetokounmpo or whatever you want to say. I wasn't ready to say his last name. I just call him the Greek Freak. I can say his last name. I just wasn't ready for it. You know, I didn't have time to get real warmed up today. didn't go through my normal process. So bear with me, but we will make it a good 90 minutes of content at the very least. Jerry yesterday talking about Zion Williamson. That was a name that somewhat interested me, but I don't know that the Kings really have anything that the Pelicans might want in exchange for Zion Williamson. So a lot of things going. Again, I'm going to share my thoughts on the Scott Perry. I kind of feel like he's in a corner already, and I'm going to share that in a few minutes, but I want to check in with all of you first. Thanks for being here in the postseason on a Wednesday. What's everybody up to? They need Luke Walton as lead assistant. Tristan, that's a terrible idea. And by the way, Tristan, I was going through, because I'm going to play some more of Jerry's comments from yesterday, today. He's like, come on, Tristan, pay attention. He claps his hands. That's going to be a soundbite for this show. So you would have just got that soundbite. Kenny Nat, all right, that's a little bit more reasonable. Yes, he is. It's a good point. Waiting for dinner to be done. Richard, what's for dinner? Richard's in Dallas. He's in Texas, I believe. Richard, I was in your state this last week. Should have said hi. What will the starting lineup be next year? Good question. I think it starts with the point guard position. You got to get a bona fide point guard in. I tried to ask Jerry about that yesterday, and he agrees. He actually thought this was interesting. Jerry thought that if you had a 3-4 that was, or I guess could play a little bit of 5 too, but that 3-and-D wing that could switch, he thought that would have been good enough for 5 to 7 more wins this season. Whereas if the Kings would have had that point guard that we all keep talking about, that have maybe have only gotten them 2 or 3 more wins. So in terms of the starting lineup, I think Malik Monk goes back to the bench next year. I'm fairly certain he's going back to the bench. But outside of that, I am looking probably, assuming there's not any massive moves made, because the Kings don't have a ton of room to make massive moves. I'm looking at featuring Keegan Murray on my forward line as much as I can. And I'm also kind of working under the assumption, and there's been no news along these lines, but it just makes the most sense when you look at what the Kings have to work with. I'm working under the assumption that the Kings are probably not going to have DeMar DeRozan next year when they open the season. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think if you're going to move a piece, that's probably the piece. And here's the other thing with Malik Monk in the starting lineup that we talked about when Malik was out and Zach excelled in a few games. Malik, he covers ground so quickly. He can be on one side of the court and all the way on the other side in the snap of a finger, especially because when he's doing that snake dribble off the pick and roll, something he probably did a little bit too much of at times, quite frankly. But what I'm saying is, because he covers ground, I think it kind of screws up the spacing with Levine too, because Levine can cover ground quickly. And quite frankly, they didn't have a massive sample size to work together and really learn each other's games. So I like giving Zach a little bit more space with that starting unit and a point guard that can operate with Sabonis. But we'll talk about it. I mean, are the Kings going to move up? Are they going to try to make a trade to get into the first round of this draft? Probably not. You've got the 42nd pick. So anything could happen, though. This is where you pay attention to the teams like Houston. You pay attention to Oklahoma City. You pay attention to the Lakers. There's going to be a lot of talk about what the Lakers are going to do. Are they going to push all in for what might be LeBron's last season or last couple of seasons? Now that you have Luka, I mean, they're close to all in to a degree. So do they try to go and get another piece? Are they willing to go into the luxury tax? So a lot of questions to be answered, but those are the teams that I'm paying attention to and kind of swerving around them, snake dribbling around them, looking where they might be willing to cut a few ties where it could benefit the Kings. Move DeMar for a decent point guard would be nice. I agree. I think wouldn't it be great if you could get like a DeMar DeRozan? And I bet the money doesn't match up, but a DeRozan and Alex Caruso deal, because the Thunder could use that veteran six man off the bench in DeMar DeRozan, and they could live without Caruso. Interesting. Tyrese's dad, heck of a game last night, by the way, by Tyrese. And by the way, for anybody that says the basketball gods are not real, they're real. They are absolutely real. Detroit goes into the Garden, wins that game. If you're Detroit, and I guess I will hear it if you're going to come in here and say the series should be 3-2. I'll listen to it, but it got evened out. They now get a chance to go home and take advantage of that series. So, oh my God, you're dying over there. Yeah, just wait till that drop comes. If Perry is smart, he needs to hit up the Bucks, Magic, and Pelicans. All teams that need high power offense. We have two guys for point guard, power forward, and some long, lengthy defenders. I agree with you. That's where we were talking about Zion yesterday, DG. And when I look at what the Kings did with De'Aaron Fox, disappointing, right? Now that you see Steph Castle, Rookie of the Year, disappointing that the Kings did not get more for him just in assets right now, playable assets. That is a piece the Kings should have held on to this summer, and that was an owner's decision. That was not a Monty McNair decision, in my opinion. But you're looking in all the right places. Zion and the Pelicans are in that exact same position right now, where I think the Pelicans are trying to decide, is Zion, because they view him as that golden goose piece. Because of the talent, teams will give him a shot. They will pay, but it's got to be the right deal. I don't know what deal they're willing to do. Now, if you're looking at getting somebody on the perimeter, like a Trey Murphy, a piece like that, all right, maybe you can pull something off, because they're kind of stuck in the middle. They are a team that was expected to be competitive. They were expected to be in the playoff race in the Western Conference, and the injuries just stacked on injuries. The Bucks too. With the Giannis situation, do you rebuild around Giannis? Do you let Giannis go? I'm of the thinking, and I guess there is two different mindsets here as a small market team. You got your championship with that star, and you realize, because you've tried another couple of things and it hasn't worked out since, maybe you move on from that star because, yeah, we got that championship. Because those markets don't get that star unless you usually draft that star. So you've got that line of thinking, and then you've got the other line of thinking. You can't let that guy go. We'll never have a Giannis again. So you're probably not getting a Giannis back for Giannis. Some smoke or a lot of talk about could he work out with the Lakers. Another name that you should pay attention to is Kawhi Leonard. He's going to be coming up into the last year of his deal. What is Philadelphia going to do? That's another team. Not saying that we want any of their pieces, but Paul George, disappointing, injury-riddled season. Maxey, really probably the brightest future out of everybody right now in Philadelphia. Embiid, you just can't count on him. Now, I do have to give Giannis some credit. At least Giannis played through. That's right. Played through the playoffs so far. So, and I know they are Dunskies, but man, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. We're still waiting for your answer, by the way, on what dinner is, but I am still going up on the chat. Holy moly, Jim Bob Bowley.
Holy moly, Jim Bob Bowley.
Yes, indeed. So I'm going to tell you in a second why the Kings really put Scott Perry into a corner, a bad corner, in my opinion. DeMar for Jonathan Isaac. You think Isaac can stay on the court, though? I don't know. Do you think DeMar would want to be in Orlando? Look, I am not usually the guy that advocates for making sure that you take care of the player on the way out, especially the way the Kings did with De'Aaron Fox. I mean, did Vivek Ranadive even think about his franchise when he traded De'Aaron Fox? It's crazy how quickly all that went down. Now, we all agreed, most of us agreed De'Aaron needed to be traded, but the offseason, this is the time to do it because look at teams, look at a Houston, right? Houston's a perfect example. Let's say Houston gets bounced, as it looks like they're going to. They play tonight. They're back at home against the Warriors. Let's say Houston gets bounced. That's already a place that De'Aaron had made known he wanted to play. Right now, it's like, I need that extra piece. I need that scoring. I need that veteran. And that is when guys like De'Aaron become more valuable. But no, we'll just get some second round picks and Zach LaVine, who Vivek has wanted since 20. What is it? 20. How long has it been? It's been like 7 years. I think it's been 7 years. Isaac played 70-ish games this year. DeMar would be playing with the playoff team. Yeah, and Banchero, he's going to get paid too. So I could see Orlando possibly wanting to play ball. Well, okay, here's the problem with Orlando. This last offseason was their offseason that they had money to work with. This offseason, they're going to be tied up. So we'll see. Your phone is blowing up like Scott Perry's. So many coaches wanting to coach the Kings. Yeah, right. Okay, let me ask you this question. I asked Jerry this, and I don't think he really understood the context in which I was asking it. So let me ask all of you. Is your opinion different of Scott Perry if Scott Perry walks up to his introductory press conference with Doug Christie and announces that Doug Christie is returning to the team as the coach? Does that change your perception of him whatsoever? Does him saying, give me a week, even though my phone's blowing up and I don't have my front office in place and I won't even be done interviewing the Kings' current staff for 2 to 3 weeks, but give me a week on the coach. If he would have just walked up with Doug, does that change things for you as a fan? Or does it just aggravate you the same way? Because again, I don't think a lot of people are complaining about Doug as the choice as head coach. I think we're complaining about the process and another, you want to say, floor. We took the next step in anxiety that shows that Vivek and really those around him are making a lot of decisions right now. Yes, because he wasn't blowing smoke up our asses. All right, there you go. See, it's a little, I think it is a little bit easier to swallow. Because then that was Vivek's choice. You know that part of being the GM in Sacramento came with the price tag of having Doug Christie as your head coach. That's where I say Scott got put in a bad corner. And you think Scott was in a corner before, wait until it becomes time and this thing gets announced officially with Doug returning. Are you going to send Doug to the press conference on his own? Are you going to send Scott up there again? If you do send Scott up there again, I would bet just as many questions will be targeted to Scott as they would be Doug about a process, by all accounts, that never played out. There was none. It was like his phone's ringing off the hook. So You know, he probably had very little time to set an alarm, but it was like, set an alarm 6 days from now. This is when I announce Doug. You know, and then he's going to be blowing more smoke. It's incredible. I kind of, to a degree, I feel bad for him. But again, he didn't have to take the job. Didn't have to do it. Sacramento won't get Giannis unless he wants to go to Sacramento. Yeah, he's not coming to Sacramento. No chance. Vivek no-show at the press conference. Then Perry lied to us. See, and that's what I mean. So that's what I was going to get at. The fact that Scott Perry, let's just talk about it really quick right now. The fact that Scott Perry basically had to walk up to the podium, introduce himself, break the ice, and I don't mind him talking about his wife and, you know, trying to be relatable. Go find me another organization. Go on YouTube and search for GM introductory press conferences and see how many GMs walk up there on their own, new GMs, without an introduction, without a couple of paragraphs. Hey, we are so happy and excited to welcome Scott Perry to Sacramento as the new general manager of the Sacramento Kings. Previously, Scott Perry was in the front office with the Detroit Pistons when they won so many championships. Also, he is a return. This is a return to Sacramento for Scott. He was here for 3 months in 2017 until the Knicks offered him a position and poached him away. He was that good in Sacramento that they poached him away. And now he makes his triumphant return. Ladies and gentlemen, Scott Perry. Done. Hey, welcome, Sacramento. Excited to be here. Let's get to work. Taking questions now. Like, you don't have to go through all that. And then also, if you have somebody next to you, they can check you if you're over talking. Notice how there's always something hanging over the table, like a tablecloth. You don't see what the feet are doing. A lot of times they're kicking, like, shut up. Right? And so I'm sure that because nobody was there to kind of give Scott a poke here or there, he probably said a little bit of word salad. We know that. But he probably said a little bit more in certain areas than he wanted to. And in some places contradicted himself. And because your owner will take your money, but he doesn't want to be accountable to you, he's not showing up at these press conferences. Should have been him, as many of you have said. So, to a degree, Scott Perry made his bed. He didn't have to say, my phone's ringing off the hook for this job. He didn't have to go to those lengths. Because what is that expectation set up? Damn, maybe people do want to come to Sacramento. Maybe Taylor Jenkins is an option in Sacktown. Is Dave Yeager maybe making a return? Stan Van Gundy, is he going to leave TV? Oh, it's finally going to be Mark Jackson, right? Like, you're going through these names. All he had to say is, it is a very important time in Sacramento Kings basketball. And I want to do my due diligence to find the best leader to take this team through the next couple of years. That includes talking to Doug at some point. When that process plays out, we will name a head coach. How different is that? Like, it's two different worlds, right? So now that we're at a point where Doug Christie is going to be the next head coach, I'm asking myself, will there be a press conference? Scott's already in a corner. I'll ask you guys as a fan, if he comes up and says, "Oh yeah, we did all this and my phone continued ringing," great. Or he can just shoot you straight and say, "Doug and I had some great conversations. He was 27 and 24. This team bought in to what Doug was selling for the most part. I know there were some lulls. Him and I share the same vision for this team going forward. Doug Christie is the right guy for this job. So we chose Doug." Thanks, Tay, for the super chat. Happy early birthday, Domas. Sacktown loves you. Domas is a gem, man. Gotta love Sabaka. Sabaka is a legend in these parts. For those that don't know, Sabaka, Domas, when he goes to the rim, the mics catch him all the time. Listen to Domas. He sounds just like Chewbacca. It's crazy. So Jerry was on yesterday. We're going to get back to your comments in a second. If you want to call the show, please do. Hit the link that is in the chat. Scan the QR code that is on the screen. There was some ambiguity about Jerry's comments last week on who the best center was in Kings history. We cleared the air, but then we had a little bit more nuanced, or we added some nuance to it. Here was yesterday with Jerry. A little bit of controversy from last week's segment. There were some fans that watched it and came away with the idea that you thought Domantas Sabonis is the best big man in the NBA. Jerry, the way I remember it is the best big man in the history of the Kings.
Yeah, the best center.
Yes.
The best center, not even
Center.
the best big man, because
There you go.
I think there's a couple of power forward types, Chris Webber being one, and Jerry Lucas being another, that I would rate above Domas for sure. But no, he's the best starting center. And if anybody feels differently, name them. LaSalle Thompson, Olden Polynice, Vlade Divac. No, he's better than those guys. His career proves it to date. Sam Lacey was the second best for the old Kansas City Kings, and I think he made the All-Star team one time, and never played on a team that won more than 45. But
That's terrible.
fans in Kansas City kind of drove him out, and
Yeah.
so they went from being 45 win team to 25 win team, and then they decided, boy, he was pretty good.
Should have kept him. Kind of like the Grizzlies said.
I don't know why they got rid of him. But no, just as simple as that. Just I followed the team since they were the Cincinnati Royals before they became the Kings, and there's no doubt that Domas is the best center that the Kings have ever had. Doesn't mean that he'll be the best you ever have, but since it's been 50 years, you want to be careful. If before when you move him, you want to be very careful.
So I'm going to ask a nuanced question here. And I know you'll understand the line, because when this came back up on Grant's show last night, DeMarcus Cousins' name came up. Would you say that DeMarcus Cousins was the most talented center in Sacramento?
Yes, no question. I mean, actually, probably DeMarcus had more talent than Weber. But obviously, there's issues where his talent didn't translate to any level of winning, and all kinds of issues on and off the floor. So that's it's a shame. I mean, I think DeMarcus had Hall of Fame talent.
Wow.
But what happened has happened, and we've seen always say that's one thing about it. For every player you see that's all-star caliber or makes all-stars, there's 2 or 3 of equal talent that don't do it for different reasons. Lack of work ethic, lack of development, wrong spot, wrong attitude. There's all kinds of possibilities. And but yeah, DeMarcus, marvelous talent, just quite honestly, most of it wasted.
I will say this really quick. I'm just shifting gears for 2 seconds about Giannis because I'm looking at the video again. He has this quiet history of being a hothead. Just do a few Google searches. And I don't mean it in a bad, I don't know exactly how I classify it because it's not it's not one of these.
I think every team really needs what I call a shitbird.
He's not one of those, but is it an arrogance? Is it a little bit of a temper issue? I mean, there's videos of him where people are working on the hoops before the games, getting the cameras and the mic set up, kicking over ladders. He's got some frustration in him, but if you're Tyrese's dad, you can't do that. You just can't do that. I mean, you're like putting hands on a player. I mean, what are we doing? Anybody see Kawhi Leonard's save last night in Denver? Unbelievable. That is why they measure hands at the combine. That was unreal. Incredible save. We're getting a lot of talk about whether Sabonis is a power forward or a center. Thank you. Appreciate it, Mark. See, it's not that hard. Yeah, and okay, so I guess this is kind of where the problem lies. So if you look at some of the decisions this year, they weren't necessarily bad decisions. The execution was awful. But up until, and I can't say that Scott Perry is a bad hire. I can tell you, I don't think he started off on the right foot with Sacramento fans. Jerry has said nothing but good things about him as a person and a basketball mind. Grant has said the same about his basketball mind and his personality. But with the introductory press conference, with the quote unquote coaching search, I can't say he started off well with all of you. And I hear your comments every day. You guys call the show, you gals call the show, and you let us know your frustrations about it. But firing Mike Brown was not a bad idea. It wasn't. It made sense. There was a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. I mean, Mike Brown, more or less, after getting that extension, really dug his heels in. And I know I said that yesterday, and you're like, well, what do you mean he dug his heels in? He dug his heels in. He was saying, I get to coach my way now. Not saying that it wasn't always his way, but it's more of it's my way or it's the highway. So there were gripes about how much guys were practicing. This goes all the way back to the start of the season where we're talking about the 49ers and how their season and their off season and then camp was just not really flowing very well. Didn't look like things were going super smooth, and it continued into the preseason, and everybody thought, oh, they'll just flip a switch. It'll change. No, it didn't change. And we all know what happened to the Niners. Sorry, Haunted Horse. But the Kings were kind of doing the same thing. The preseason, the shots weren't going down. Malik was saying we're tired, which kind of shocked Mike Brown. But what it comes down to at the end of the day is this: Mike Brown gave the guys so much more power in year 2 to call the shots. It was more than let it fly and spray the ball. It was a lot more, a lot of coaching, probably a little bit more coaching than in the past year or two. And part of that was because of DeMar DeRozan, getting him integrated into the mix. But then the way that Mike was interacting with the media, the things he was saying at the press conferences, you know, there's a right way and a wrong way to talk to your players. You want to talk to them like that in the locker room, talk to them like that in the locker room. And I'm not saying that you can't be hard on players. You can. It's just there's a right place to do it and a wrong place to do it. And the media, unless you are doing that once in a while, I mean, look at how it grinded on Denver. Mike Malone was known as one of those just not holding back, will rip you a new one, but respected, right? But eventually there is an hourglass on that. It gets old. It wears on guys. It brings the mood down. And you saw Denver's playing great basketball, by the way, under David Adelman. But getting back to Mike, you know, saying things in the media where it's, well, somehow, some way, we've got to get this thing turned around. Somehow, some way, the guys, you know, I don't know what more I can do. They've got to execute the game plans. And so that kind of gets old. And then you climax up to, what was it, 27? I think we counted 27 possession after possession.
Home run 3.
Possession
After possession. 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 After possession.
When you have guys on your team that were actually doing that. So you can see where the conflict lied. So firing him, whether it was a Vivek, Jeremy Lamb, Angeli, Jeremy Lamb's sister's decision, whatever it might be, it was the right move. The Kings were spiraling. They were 5 games under 500. They had lost 5 or 6 in a row, and it climaxes with De'Aaron, in my opinion, that night, quitting on his team, and for a night, quitting on the fan base in that press conference. So yeah, you make a move, but you don't do it after the guy coached, or you don't do it after he coached practice. You don't do it while he's on the way to the airport. You don't do it without already having an interim coach in mind. That plane had to wait for them to find out who the interim coach was. So we have Vivek that made a good decision, but executed it awfully and got killed for it, right? But now, if you're Vivek, hey, I made a good decision. And if you look at the way that things played out the rest of the year in the NBA, especially the West, Taylor Jenkins loses his job before the playoffs. Michael freaking Malone loses his job before the playoffs. So if you're Vivek, you're thinking, all right, I'm ahead of this curve. Whoever's in his ears like, Vivek, man, you started that trend. See, Vivek? And you could see where the confidence could build up from there. That's where it's, okay, you know what? Levine's going to be the guy. Let's go get Levine. And so I'm hoping with Doug Christie, and we don't know yet with Scott Perry, that they're able to play the game with Vivek. At least play the game. Play the game to, not to, but enough to work around, work with Vivek. Because I think Vivek right now, he's probably more confident than ever in the decisions that he has made as of late. Probably thinks Zach LaVine was fine. But this point guard thing, that to me is the big question. It's like, what is this team's definition of a point guard going to be. So Vivek is a listener and fired Monty the same day he had his replacement hired. Yeah. So again, I'm saying Vivek's confident. This is just me. If I'm going off of what we know about this owner, right? If I'm going off of what we know about him and how he thinks he knows basketball, he thinks he's made some good decisions. So why not with Scott Perry? I mean, we saw the line between the decisions that were Monty McNair decisions and Vivek Ranadive decisions. With Sam Amick's article, clearly Monty McNair fell on the sword. Straight up fell on it. Was that on a recorded player? 49ers started off with Ayuk, BS, Trent Williams holdout, McCarthy overtrained. Okay, McCaffrey overtrained. You keep going to McCaffrey overtrained. I don't care if he undertrained. The 49ers didn't do a physical, man. They didn't do a physical. Okay, that's a bad break. That was an awful break. That should never happen to anybody. But let's say that doesn't happen. You're going to tell me the Niners season is different, Haunted Horse? They had Ricky Pearsall for all of their games. The season's different. I don't think it is. I do not think it is. Let's see as we go through the chats. Sabonis is a 4.6 to a 4.9, not a 4 and not a traditional 5. And that's what I think makes this thing very interesting when it comes to these talks about could you trade Domantas Sabonis? Because of that exact thing right there, BJ. Jerry talked about the perfect guy to put next to Sabonis, which would be Jaren Jackson Jr. That's the thing. You have to have a certain type of team. You have to have a certain type of offense. You don't go and grab Sabonis. And by the way, if you look at what Zion Williamson's making right now compared to Domantas Sabonis, it's going to make your stomach turn a little bit. But with Domas at 45, 46, and 49 in the next 3 years, nobody's going to bring him in for a double-double every night at $50 million. Let's just put it that way. At $50 million, you have to be, with this CBA, a featured player. So to me, it's all about fit and whether a team wants to continue playing through Sabonis or they've got that perfect 5 that allows Sabonis to play the 4. It's a really interesting thing. And I don't think, and that is your biggest problem right now when you look at this thing. And if you're Scott Perry, I said this before the season even started, or before Scott Perry, was hired. I said this during the season, before the season ended, when Doug Christie was coaching. This is high-level stuff. Like, this is complicated. Bring in the best basketball minds in the world, and this is complicated. Because you've got these young pieces, some of which still growing, some of which unproven, some of which you could even argue have not even been given a chance to fully show what they can do. When you rebuild, you want to rebuild around the younger pieces, right? You've got a good contract in Malik Monk, but those 2 contracts at the top, I think if you were to, and honestly, let's list this out. Put it in the chat. I think we can all agree, if we're talking about the worst contracts in the NBA, Bradley Beal is number 1. Bradley Beal, hands down, has a no trade clause. 60 million bucks? That is the worst contract right now in the NBA. But I think there's an argument to be made, and I'm not saying Domantas Sabonis does not deserve what he's being paid. There's a difference between deserving and market value. Because the market value changed with this new CBA, and I don't know that the front office took that into account. You know, they're looking at inflation in contracts. I would say contracts are starting to come down a little bit. You're seeing teams shying away, stepping away from the bank counter and thinking twice about supermaxes. Hell, Dallas trades Luka. They had questions about giving him a supermax. But would it be unreasonable to say that the Kings roster, as it sits today, has 2 of maybe the top 10 worst contracts in the NBA? Is that blasphemous? I think Zach LaVine is probably number 2 on that list. If not number 2, for sure 3. But I think Sabonis is probably somewhere 1 through 10. 2.2% of his peers said that he is overrated. If you put Sabonis and Zion on a ballot and you gave it to all 30 GMs, how many GMs are going Sabonis over Zion? And Zion's making 15 million less. Well, roughly. And with LaVine and Sabonis, and I'm wearing a Sabonis shirt right now. I love Domas. I love how he plays. I love his toughness. I think that he sets a standard with his actions in that locker room. Not with his words, but with his actions. But I don't see how you can get either of those off the books without somebody having a strong love and belief in either of those players or the perfect fit for either of those players without taking a haircut. Zach LaVine, you got to give him credit here. He played heavy minutes in Sacramento, and he was able to stay on the court for the most part. That contract becomes unbearable if he's not able to be on the court. But your top 2 guys, I don't know that you can get fair value. I know you can't for Zach. I don't know that you could get fair value for Domas. Now, the good thing about Domas is, I believe, especially through this year, his play never suffered if he was unhappy. And Domas was one of those guys that was for Mike Brown being fired. Newsflash, nothing new. Never affected his play. So if you have those 2 guys together, Domas and LaVine, and we're assuming LaVine stays healthy, I just don't know how you get this team either to the playoffs or this team is not in contention for the play-in. I just think with those 2 guys alone and Malik Monk, you're stuck. You're just in this basketball purgatory. And look, I am as optimistic as anybody when it comes to what a point guard might be able to do, what a point guard might kind of rebalance and shake things up for this team and this offense. You can't, AP. That's the point that I'm saying. That option came off the table the minute you traded for Zach LaVine. You can't do it. Paul says, I think more GMs, majority go with Sabonis. That talent when he's watching the game. Say that again? We go with Sabonis, but what? What? Who taught you to spell like that, man? You're going to get the spelling test, kid, for that one. It's either that or I'm too old and I don't know all these abbreviations. I mean, I know some of them. I do have a 10-year-old. I can't say that I know that one. Interesting. What good? What, Paul? What does Sabonis.bwh8t or ATV gold? Is that what great talent is he on the bench? Klutzy fingers. Right? No, hey, you know what? You are all good, brother. You're all good. I will take klutzy fingers every day of the week over talk to text with Dennis with as many messages as he sees. AP, can you buy out Mike Brown but not LaVine? Yeah, you cannot. Well, coaches don't go against the cap. That's the thing. Coaches do not go against the cap. LaVine, if you bought him out, you're still on that money still goes towards the cap. So if you, here's the thing, if you cut Zach LaVine, you're still having that $47 million cap hit. If you were to buy him out, and if you're Zach LaVine, you're not getting bought out. You've got a player option for 48.9 and 26-27. You don't think Zach LaVine's picking that up? Of course he's picking that up. He has no reason to get bought out. But if you were to get bought out, like a good example here, Ben Simmons, I believe he was on the hook for 39. They bought him out at 36. So the 36 went against the cap, or no, excuse me, the full amount went against the cap. He took less so he could go play for another team, for a contender. You are tripping. Sabonis is worth the money. Andrew, Sabonis would not get paid that money in any other market in the NBA. 50% GM goes Sabonis over Zion based on history alone. Okay. So that's the question. It's not about the talent. Zion is more talented than Sabonis, hands down. It's about the reliability. Domas isn't going anywhere. Hey, look, I am not sitting up here and saying I want Domas to go somewhere. You have a new GM that's in place that has to look over this entire roster. And by the way, Sabonis is the one that says, or reportedly, will be seeking direction on where this franchise is headed. Because right now, Sabonis is in his prime. He probably doesn't want to waste that in Sacramento. If this is going to be Vivek's franchise. So you got to look at it. I don't think that anybody is untouchable, but I'm saying I do believe those two contracts would be in the top 10 worst contracts in the NBA. Bradley Beal, he's the worst. Yep, I agree. I think we have a highly paid and underutilized. I think we have highly paid and underutilized players. I would agree with the underutilized. I don't know. I do know you're not utilizing Zach LaVine properly if you're having him run the pick and roll, if you're having him create off the dribble. That's not what you want Zach LaVine to do. Like 3 dribbles and shot. Like that is the max amount of dribbles you want from Zach. So him playing point guard, absolutely, you are underutilizing him. Domantas Sabonis, I think there's an argument you're underutilizing him as well. I don't think you're underutilized. Well, at the end of this year, you underutilized Malik Monk. I would agree there. You did not run nearly as much pick and roll. Valanciunas, what was up with his minutes at the end of the season? That was crazy. As we look at the Kings' needs here in the offseason. But yeah, I think you have a lot of Kings that are playing out of position. So I guess the question becomes, if you're Scott Perry with the resources that you have on hand, how can you get those guys closer to playing in position? And where can you free up space to improve what you have? Because they've made it clear this is not a rebuild. It's not. The point I was trying to make that it was you couldn't rebuild if you tried right now with the contracts on the books. So Scott Perry, although they're saying, yeah, we're going for it, we're reshuffling, you don't have any choice with the Sabonis contract and the LaVine contract. I agree. Look, I think sometimes we overvalue our players here in Sacramento. I don't think we're overvaluing Sabonis. I think there is a reason he was here for a year and a half. De'Aaron was here for 6.5 and was able to make the playoffs. Sabonis earns everything he is paid. Now, is the number that he is paid too high for the rest of the NBA? That's the point that I'm trying to make to everybody. That's the point. But I do think there's more you can get out of Sabonis. Look at all this Sabonis love. What's the over-under on LaVine games played next year? It's a good question. No, not saying blow it up and rebuild. I'm looking at how you reshuffle, how you get guys to their natural positions. I mean, if you're Doug Christie, you've got to find a way. I truly believe this is the year that you've got to feature Keegan Murray in some manner. You do. And the first thing that somebody's going to pen out, it's probably already in the chat, is Keegan can't shoot anymore. My response to you is nobody on the Kings, outside of Keon Ellis and Domantas Sabonis, could shoot the 3 anymore consistently. There was something about what the Kings were doing that ruined the Kings' 3-point shooters. Wasn't just a Keegan thing. It's a Kevin Huerter thing. I could go down the line. All these guys suffered. So how do you fix that? To me, that is a system and a structure thing. And that's going to be up to Doug. But I need to see Keegan Murray. I need to know what I have in him. I know what we have defensively in Keegan. In fact, I think Keegan is probably one of the more valuable pieces you have at the moment if you were going to try to make a move, but I would not want to part ways with him at any, well, I'm not going to say at any cost, but with where the Kings are at, he's far too important defensively. Paul says, let's keep Levine games played to a minimum. Bad mojo. Don't jinx it. Yeah, I'm with you, dude. That's why I didn't even want to put an over-under on it. Yeah, 100%. Well said. Queens. Yeah, that's why I just feel bad for the fan base. Like when Brian Windhorst does this, like it's like a punch in the gut, not just to me, but like for me to all of you. Like it just sucks.
All this change say to you, Brian, about the state of the franchise?
Because it's not a good organization. I mean, I wish Scott Perry the best. He's our former colleague, very strong executive. Domantas Sabonis gave his exit interview today. Yes. And they said, what do you need to do in the offseason? He said, we need to get a point guard. They just had a franchise point guard.
That Scott Perry was there in the lead up to drafting. That
they let the relationship go south on. I'm sure everybody's got their story, but the relationship went south. They had the executive of the year. The relationship went south. He knew he was getting fired because they already had Scott Perry hired. He knew for weeks he was getting fired. His assistant, Wes Wilcox, left weeks ago to take another job when he was a big part of their rebuild. How many coaches did they go through in Sacramento over the last 17 years? They finally found a coach who put them on the right path in Mike Brown. They liked him so much, they gave him a contract extension last summer, and they fired him 2 months into the season. This is the definition of why they have been a bagged organization for decades. And maybe this new alignment will work. Maybe Doug Christie will work. Maybe they will get another point guard. Just look what they did. Like, I like Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan as people. I like them as players. They can be successful. They were very clearly a poor pairing in Chicago. It did not work. Not for 5 minutes over the course of years. The Bulls moved on from both. The Kings brought them in. They had an alignment that worked, and they imported a pairing that didn't work and is very expensive. They had it in front office that was working. They disenfranchised them and drove them out of town. What are we doing here? Like, okay, maybe it will work going forward, but why would you have faith in it? Why would you have faith in the decision-making from the top? This is not
terrible. Like, it just sucks as Kings fans to hear that. You hate to hear it. Drives me nuts. Hoping it can get changed. I'm with you guys. I really think, and Grant and I have been tooting this horn for a couple of seasons, a true point guard makes all the difference in the world. And how can you get that? I think Houston is a very good option, but I don't know that point guard's there. I think that Houston, looking at Tari Eason, I think that's a name that they might be willing to part with. Tari Eason's got a huge upside to him as well. Amen Thompson, untouchable. He's not going anywhere. But a DeRozan to Houston move, yes, I could see that completely as feasible on Houston's behalf. Now, how do you make the money work, and are the right players in return available to come to you? That is the big thing for the Kings. Fox wasn't a good point guard. He was more of a scorer, 100%. Well, I think that is the argument, and the light in the tunnel, at the end of the tunnel, that is the grass might be greener on the other side that I'm holding on to. And it's not just that move. It is what Jerry said. It is what Scott Perry said. It's getting in some more athleticism, some more length on the perimeter. But you have main dishes. We broke it down to the food analogy. We have main dishes. We don't have the right sides to go with them, right? So you've got a beautiful roll, like you got whatever your favorite sushi place is. You've got the best roll from their restaurant and a side of French fries. They just don't go together, right? So you might be able to get a couple of those side dishes, and yeah, this thing can tie together. Now, I don't think this thing is set up anywhere near a championship contender, even if you get the right sides. But I think you probably in a West that's changing, Portland is getting better. There's no denying that. San Antonio, they're looking to be aggressive here in the offseason. You got to think that team's coming. Utah, who the heck knows what's going on with Utah? New Orleans next year likely will be back in the picture. I think you have a team that with the point guard, assuming that makes this thing tie together a little bit better, because we haven't seen it. We have not had, and don't say we've had Matthew Dellavedova. Don't tell me that we've had McLaughlin. I mean, a true point guard that is a playmaker, a true point guard that can run the pick and roll, that can set good screens, that is kind of the general of the team, that can space the floor appropriately, that somebody you have to pay attention to and guard coming off of a screen many times. And I think, like, when I go back and I watch the Kings film, it wasn't for a lack of trying. It was just a lack of time together at the end of the season. That's where they ended up, especially with the combinations they had to play after Malik Monk was lost, after Jake LaRavia was lost. You had these combinations that had not played together whatsoever. You saw guys going to spots on the floor rather than going and actually reading the floor and saying, oh, look, there's a gap there. Look, the defender's hanging off. I need to go screen down there. It was the little stuff like that. But having a point guard that you've got to respect, a point guard that's coming off of a curl screen or whatever that you still have to pay attention to, that makes a difference. And a lot of times down the stretch, Keon Ellis, Devin Carter, whoever it may be, you didn't have to give them any attention as soon as the ball was passed away from them. So, again, athleticism, you get the best out of Levine. You keep getting a lot out of Sabonis. Now, if I look at Sabonis, and I asked Jerry this a couple of weeks ago, I said, I ran down 6 players, and I said, Jer, what does this guy need to work on in the offseason? And for me, Sabonis, he got much better from beyond the three-point line, but the mid-range is still a problem for him. There's a hesitation there. I'm looking at the mid-range for him this summer. You've got to be able to pull that as confidently as you will pull the three-pointer. And I also think turnovers were obviously a bigger issue for him with less burn this year. So you got to clean that up a little bit more. But you've got this other group of Kings, Keon Ellis. Some of you saying Keon can play point. I don't think he can. I don't think you want Keon as your point guard. That's not what he does best. Again, you got to reframe this into how can we get guys back into the positions where they're playing their natural positions. They're doing what they are doing best. Anybody out there that's worked a corporate job or, white collar job, I'm sure you've done strength finders where you read about your strengths and you find out about your weaknesses. So now that you know your weaknesses and you understand everybody else's strengths, you guys can come together as a better team. It's getting guys back into that place. But then I go back to one name, and it's Keegan Murray. He's kind of been stuck in that 4 role when a lot of us think he is a natural 3. There's no doubt he can guard 1 through 5. But, can you get more out of him? And I just don't think with DeMar DeRozan in town, that's going to be possible. Somebody's going to have to take a step back come this next season if DeMar is still in town, now with Levine on the court. Let's see. Yup, shake my head. Dennis, it seemed to me De'Aaron and Sabonis worked great together. I believe Sabonis missed De'Aaron when he left. I think Sabonis, I think you didn't have what you had with De'Aaron was somebody when they wanted to that could create space and separate from their defender, which then would cause somebody to come over and help, right? And open the next guy up. You didn't have that anymore. What you traded in, what you did was you traded for Levine, which to me is the version of De'Aaron that everybody in town, including myself at times, complained about. It was the version of De'Aaron Fox that settled for the three-point ball. way too often. We knew De'Aaron's talent was getting to the hoop, getting to the paint, the mid-range. And I understand why De'Aaron wanted... look, longevity is everything these days. Taking care of your body. You knew it took a toll on De'Aaron getting hammered inside, especially with an undersized center. So he took a step back. He started shooting more threes. But when you bring Levine in, you now lose that entire side that you still had of De'Aaron's game. And I would argue De'Aaron, basketball IQ, much better than what we've seen so far from Zach LaVine. So you kind of took what we saw was not working for the Kings offense and you downgraded it. Like if De'Aaron was an iPhone, what iPhone are we on right now? iPhone 19X Power Max, whatever. You get my point. But you downgraded the model. You downgraded the software. You basically took the version of De'Aaron Fox that caused some problems at times for this offense, and you brought that back in Zach LaVine. Except Zach LaVine can't get to the mid-range like De'Aaron does. Now, I thought Zach at times did very good at getting to the hoop, but too many soft finishes for me. Correct me if I'm wrong. He was the dunk champion, right? Should be dunking the basketball. So it's a very, very, it's a weird balance. It was a decision that just, and I hope it ends up. Thank you, Paul. We are on iPhone 76. I knew we were getting close. I knew we were getting. Have you guys seen what the first iPhone goes for now? If you had the foresight to keep that brand new iPhone 1 wrapped up and throw it in the closet for 10 years, have you seen what they go for now? It's incredible. I mean, like, if you could bring back one cell phone, I bet a lot of people, and I know it's back to a degree, the Razor. The Razor was a good phone, the original Razor. I was Sidekick guy briefly, very briefly, when AOL messaging was really big before texting. I was Sidekick guy. Then Mike got me over to this different version of a BlackBerry. So you've got BlackBerry guy. But what about the old Zach Morris block phone? You know, the gray one? That phone was incredible. I remember my dad had one of those phones that basically looked like a satellite that you had to carry around in a leather case. The flip phones. Yep. That first phone, that first Nokia that came out that had Snake on it, that was a damn solid phone. It was a good phone. BJ, what's up, dude? BJ's on the clock, popping in and out. Yo, Adrian, I'm too old. I'm not going to say my age. I don't want to find the sound drop, Adrian. Flip phone. iPhone 76 again. See, and baby cakes, this is where I'm not sure. I am not sure. I'm not sure. I don't know if the Kings have given Zach LaVine what he needs to work to his maximum potential. And that's going to be up to Scott Perry. That's going to be up to Scott Perry. iPhone 76, man. What's that set you back now? iPhone 76, it's got to be what, like $1,200? $1,500? I think we all can actually no, I don't want to start this debate. The last time we started the debate on this show about cats and dogs, it lasted for like 2-3 months. People got heated. Like, I'm cat person. No, I'm dog person. But Apple versus Android, that is a debate that I will always have. Android users, I can't get with you. I don't understand it. I do not understand it. Love all you guys checking in with each other as well. Don't forget tonight, Grant back on the channel, 8 o'clock, open forum. He will be taking your calls, talking about what's going on with the Kings. Maybe we'll have a press release about Doug. You know, Doug's agent at Clutch has been working with the Kings, looking at like it's going to be at least a couple of year contract. And the question we were asking earlier is press conference. Will there be one? And how's that going to get handled? You have put Scott Perry into a very interesting and uncomfortable corner, which I argue Scott partially put himself into as well from his introductory press conference. I mean, it's one of those things. Is it May 12th yet? What's with May 12th? What's May 12th? 2K for a phone? Come on. 2K? Okay. Yes, I am a man. Very good observation by all you that I'm a man. That's correct. I'm a man. I'm 40.
Come after me. I'm a man. I'm 40.
Yeah, the razor. There you go. Dennis, sorry to break the bad news. The big three is not going anywhere. There's no way you trade Malik Monk. In what world, Dennis, do you trade Malik Monk? And how do you make up for that? Malik is on one of the more friendly contracts. Who are you trading Malik Monk for? See, like, to me, that I think you're trading Devin Carter before you're trading Malik Monk. I just don't see it. Let me know if you disagree with me. CBA, I'm giving up on corrections. You're all good, Paul. You are all good. Malik Monk's not going anywhere, Dennis. No cats. I'm with you, brother. Although the kid wants a cat. So if you're a GM, you want DeMar or Monk right now? I want Monk. Dennis. The Kings' pace was unbearable without Malik Monk. Like, unbearable. Did you see the play-in game, Dennis? I know you saw the play-in game. You cannot play. This team is set up to play at its best when it is playing fast and it is turning defense into offense. That's when this team's playing at its best. You can't do that with DeRozan. You have to make a sacrifice. Just go watch the pace of the Mavericks game offensively. The Mavericks had figured out the Kings in a quarter. Here we go. It's starting up again. It's Monk from. It's not even close for me. Dennis, you're being my.
I think every team really needs what I call a shitbird.
Dennis, don't be my ass bird, man. You would take DeMar over Monk? Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Dog person here. We good. Got point on Monk. We have a lot of shooting. Y'all. I mean, okay. Let's look at this. Let's look at this really quick. There's the middle of your roster. And a lot of these guys are not coming back, by the way. In fact, better probably to look up here. Shows you the guys that are not coming back and the guys that are on options. Now, the option, which is a team option on Keon Ellis, it's really interesting. I can't tell you exactly how it breaks down right now, but there is a little bit of a hang up if the team picks up the option, and the option's like $2.3 million. So of course you would pick it up. I don't, Dennis, here, just even from this standpoint, from a future standpoint, DeRozan's at the tail end of his career. You'd rather have DeRozan than Monk? I don't see it, man. I just don't see it. And by the way, Malik Monk, his energy, see, Steely Beats. Steely Beats is cats. Would I trade Keon over Monk? You know, Scott Perry talked about defense. Monty McNair's did not talk a lot about that as GM. Doug, defensive guy. That's a tough question. That is such a tough question. Are you talking in the contents, or if they're both under contract for multiple years? That is a really hard question. Here's why it's a hard question. The way that I look at the Kings combinations, and I think the way that Doug looks at the combinations that he plays together, you know, I always talk about the Doug Christie balance test, the teeter-totter for Doug Christie, because you've got all this offense on one side, you got all this defense on the other side, and you got Domas in the middle. Now, I'm not going to say Monk can't play defense. I think Monk is more suited to switch on the perimeter than Zach LaVine is. But Doug Christie, I believe, looks at it from the defensive side in this aspect. The best teams in the NBA right now are able to switch 1 through 5. The best teams, the best defensive teams in the NBA are able to switch 1 through 5. And that's why the Clippers have been, Jeff Van Gundy, what he has done down there defensively for Ty Lue's staff, incredible. So when Doug Christie has a lineup on the floor that has Keon Ellis, Keegan Murray, LaRavia, and Carter, all those guys can legitimately switch and play. I would tell you Keon can switch and play 1 through 4. LaRavia can switch and play 1 through 4, maybe even a little 5. Keon 1 through 5, Carter 1 through 4 for sure. It's that other wing that you need, that kind of, it's the wing and the point guard that balances it out. But what Keon does defensively, oh man, that's hard. That is such a hard question. Keon or Monk? Because Keon's never going to be the aggressive type offensively. He knocks down the 3 at a good clip. And here's the other thing that you got to think about with the Kings. The reason a lot of us felt Keon was a better fit in the starting lineup was not only the defensive side of things, but it was because he doesn't demand attention offensively. And when I mean attention, I mean, you don't have to get him shots to get him going. There's guys on this team that you have to get shots to get them going. Zach LaVine in that category. Malik Monk in that category. I would even include Keegan Murray in that category. So when you had Malik Monk in the starting lineup and you weren't playing pick and roll, at that point, to me, you had too many shots on the floor. You were wasting offense. You ordered way more food. Your eyes were too bigger or too big or were more big than your stomach. So Keon, although he's not explosive offensively like Malik can be, he's important to balancing out a team offensively. That is hard, man. I still take DeMar. I trade DeMar. I trade DeMar and I keep the two of them. Steely Beats, thank you for the super chat. Pair character exaggeratedly stretching his arm forward to offer a cup of coffee. Yeah, you saw me rubbing my eye. I appreciate. It has been such a week. It's been a fun week. I'm not gonna lie. I've had a very, very fun week. In fact, I was in Dallas on Friday, and it was a little bit of fun, and then it was also a little bit of business. And I flew out 5 a.m. Many of you know this. You were with us, and Mace was on my flight, and so I didn't get a ton of sleep on the plane. And then, quick turnaround. I'm back in Sacramento on Saturday night. Luckily, I was able to get direct flights both ways. But my flight home, go back and watch Monday's show. You'll learn more about my flight home. And the reason I had to come home Saturday is the wife flew to Tennessee on Sunday at like 6:45 in the morning. So I made that trip, had to take her to the airport as early basically as I had to go to the airport. And I've had the little one for the last 3 days on my own. I mean, he's not so little anymore, but he has a big project due. In fact, I think it has like 40% of his grade weighted into it, and we are doing it digitally. So the little man was in the studio last night, messing things up, changing camera angles. So I will admit, need a little bit of I need a little coffee. I appreciate it, brother. You know what else I could use? I could also use a big fat steak from Bennett's Restaurants, prime cuts of seafood and steak. And that's not just it. Y'all know I talk about the specials all the time. Happy hour 2 to 6. You can go on the lighter side. The redfish, one of my favorite things on the menu there. But they've got other awesome things going on the weekends, like weekend brunch, 8 or 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. on the weekends. All three locations: Roseville, Rockland, Howe, and Fair Oaks. You can get 2 entrees and a bottle of champagne for under $60. Where are you finding that? You ain't finding that. You can't get through the McDonald's drive-thru for under 25 for 2 people. And then also the nights on the weekends, they've got prime rib as well. So check that out after 3 p.m. on the weekends. Lunch specials to rave over. Don't believe me? Just check this out. Food's incredible. And thank you to many of you who continue to go out to Bennett, support them. Let us know when you go out there. We will retweet it. We'll pass it along to Brian, and let them know as well. Help us out. Let them know that you heard about them here. Brian, Margot, the team, they love saying hi to you. And some of you have met Brian. I've heard Brian's cut some checks to some of you. That's how good of a guy Brian is. So go check them out. BennettRestaurants.com. You can make reservations. You can also buy gift cards. Get your Mother's Day reservation, please. Get that set up right now. I also want to give a special shout out to the guys at EDM Motors. I normally do not. I do not mention them as a sponsor on the King's Court. They're one of Grant's sponsors. But Adam, incredibly awesome to work with Adam and his partner at EDH Motors. Look, they can buy, sell, do what you need to do with the vehicle. If you're looking to get a new one, let them find it for you. Let them take the hassle out of it. They'll have it perfectly detailed. All you got to do is show up to their offices in El Dorado Hills to pick it up. You can consign your vehicle. You can also trade them in. When I was in the market this last couple of weeks for a new rig, I gave them a call, and it was awesome working with them. Unfortunately, we couldn't find the rig, and it wasn't their fault. That was on me. But I want to thank them because everything Grant has said about EDH Motors is exactly true. Adam was back to me within 24 hours. Adam said he was going to have something to me. He had it to me, and just a pleasure working with them. I can promise you this: if it comes time to sell my new rig, comes time to get another one, I'm going back to EDH Motors. Go check them out in El Dorado Hills. Give them a call, 916-282-5333. If you need help getting a rig, selling a rig, consigning a rig, do it. EDH Motors. Thanks, guys. Appreciate all their help. Again, wish we could have. What I was asking for was a little bit difficult to find. So it wasn't on them. That was on me. But awesome working with them. All right, we're going to get ready to wrap up here in a few minutes. Yeah, the toe thing. Look, I love DeMar. I just think it's the right thing to do. And I think it makes the most sense for the Kings as well. Does DeMar package get you a quality point guard? It depends on who you're trading with, to be honest with you. I mean, the money should. A DeMar package should theoretically get you a couple of players, and that's what the Kings are going to have to be looking at. They're going to have to get creative filling this roster out. I'm also looking too, and I know they are very, very small considerations at this point, but the two-way guys, I want to see what the front office does with like Dexter Dennis, for instance. I've mentioned him a couple of times. I think he would be an excellent candidate for a two-way guy, but he was not one for the Kings this year. He was on the Stockton Kings, and anybody that is signed to a G League contract, that is actually with the league. It's not with a team unless you're a two-way guy. So I'm keeping my eyes to see if the Kings find a way to maybe give him a look as a two-way guy. I think he could help out, not from an offense. Well, yeah, he shoots three ball decently. He's very athletic, but defensively, he's all over the place. The guy is a baller. But then Mason Jones, or the Kings going to give him a look. They really are going to have to look within and try to figure this position out. Now, I don't know that Mace is your ideal. Like, I don't know that Mace is the point guard that you need, but he has really changed his game. And I haven't asked him if it's been in part because the organization's asked him to do this, but he has really upticked on his scoring and worked on that really well. And obviously G League Finals MVP. Will he come back? But the Kings, you probably get two players for DeMar DeRozan. I don't know that it's a 1-for-1. I know Van Vliet, there's an option there on his, and they make right around the same amount of money, but Van Vliet is closer. He's like DeRozan. He's closer to the end. I don't know that he's the right type either. I guess I just don't know really what the Kings. I would love to ask this question, and maybe it will get asked to Doug Christie and Scott Perry when they have, or if they have a press conference to introduce Doug. I would love to have the opportunity, just like I asked Jerry, what is your idea of the ideal point guard for the Kings? Because point guards, as we see, come in so many different sizes and shapes and talents, like De'Aaron Fox, not really a point guard, closer to a scorer. But the Kings during the Monty McNair era had this love for these guys that aren't point guards but aren't shooting guards. They wanted them right in the middle. Davion Mitchell, Devin Carter, etc. So what does their ideal point guard look like? I think I know what I feel like it should look like, but that doesn't mean anything. I'm not in that building. So that is a question I would love to know. Nathan, wife went to Memphis. Oh no, she went to Nashville. Thank you though. Nashville. She got hit with the humidity like I did in Dallas. So you can get any point guard. I don't know about that, Nathan. I hear Mike Brown bought a car from EDH Motors. Hell, Mike Brown might have bought EDH Motors. You never know. GM talked with players' length and wingspan. Yeah, athleticism, defense as well. Haven't watched much on Mace Jones, but he seems to be more of a scoring point guard. That's, you know what? Spot on. So this last year, Mace really turned into much more of a scorer. Now, Mace would shoot the three a lot, and he could get to the rim frequently, but not like he did this year. His story is incredible, and he is so motivated. Like, dude, we were walking through the terminal, and we were just having some small talk, and I'm like, I gave him a hard time. I said, I'm like, dude, you won the championship and you're the MVP. And the next morning you're doing hot yoga at like 5:45 in the morning. He's like, dude, I'm bringing a championship to Sacktown. And I know that sounds crazy considering, Mace being in the G League and the Kings being where they're at. But I love that mindset. I love that you have people in this system with that mindset. Like it ain't crazy to them, and they're working towards it. So, yeah, I love Mace. I think he is awesome. Deserves a shot. I would be surprised. And Jerry talked about Mace yesterday. He thinks that he is on some radars. The Kings will need to probably make a decision with Mace, whether I don't know that you're going to two-way him again. I don't know the rules about two-waying and how many times you can do it, but I believe Mace has been two-wayed twice already. So, yeah, interesting. Dexter Dennis, though, that one. And then Terry Taylor. Terry is such a good player. He is just stuck size-wise. He plays like he's a little bit quicker than a power forward. Like, if you could imagine a mini Zion Williamson from body build to the way they shoot from the perimeter, like Terry is so crafty, but he's more of a 4, and his size is more of a 2 guard, maybe a small 3, but he's got a ton of talent as well down there. So no coincidence that they won the championship. Fit C Webb, what up? Mason is a high scorer at the G League level. Didn't look like that in his appearances with the big club. No, of course it's not going to look like that. Absolutely right. It's the reason it's number 1, the G League, and number 2, when Mason Jones comes up with the big club, you're not asking Mason Jones to score 25 points. It's not his role. That is why the Kings system had worked so well down below and has worked so well, because they were sending guys down for specific reasons. When Devin Carter went back down this season, it wasn't roll the ball out there, Devin, and go score as many points as you can. Doug Christie talked about it. It was get down there. You need to run a team. I need you to get work in running a team, initiating the offense. And that has been the story for the Kings in Stockton, and the relationship between the two teams, the way they play, the way that they put players that are either two-way players or on assignment in positions, in simulations that will basically give them the same looks and responsibilities that the big team would be asking them to do. So no, if Mason was brought up to the Kings, they're not going to ask him to score 47 points. It's not the point of it. And that's the point that I was getting at about Mace being a little bit stuck in the middle to a degree before we started talking about Terry Taylor. Now, Dexter Dennis, defensively and athletically, he's there. It's the other stuff that he would need to pick up on. If Devin Carter, and by the way, Fitzy Webb, that's a funny name, by the way. But that's why last year, not this last season, but the season before too, more times than not, when Mike Brown would have somebody fall out of the rotation and then finally make their way back in or get a chance randomly in a game, more times than not, those guys played well. And a lot of those guys, they were ready and they played well. A lot of those guys were also playing in Stockton. I talk about Kessler Edwards from last season. He was getting a bunch of run down there. And it was a perfect example. When Kess would come in, he would make an impact. And credit to Kess, he found a little niche in Dallas because of all the injuries. Happy for him there. But you have got, with this new CBA, you are set up very nicely from a developmental standpoint. You have not because they won a championship, before they won a championship. You have a top 5 developmental and scouting team right now, right below you. And with the CBA, it is all about being able to identify talent and develop it as soon as possible while they're under those rookie scale deals. Has to be done for teams to have talent and win in this NBA under this CBA. We know if Devin Carter, if Devin Carter can develop into what Davion Mitchell has, I don't know, Paul. It's tough to say. You've got too small of a sample size with Devin Carter. Obviously, he missed the time that he missed coming into the season. He didn't get the full camp. He didn't get the full season. Didn't get Vegas. I would have Devin Carter in Vegas with those guys this year, by the way, and get him that full experience. I think for me, the big question around him is the shot. Davion Mitchell's shot was his shot. Fundamentally, it was okay. But I'm not so sure, and I'll ask Jerry this. I will ask Jerry this next week when he's with us on Tuesday, if he thinks he's a guy that you probably need to tweak that a little bit. Because there's certain guys, here's a perfect example. Keon Ellis, go look at his form. Keon Ellis's feet are pointed at almost, 2 o'clock when he's shooting a shot straight on. Those are those things where it's like, do you fix them? Do you not? Peja Stojakovic, I can mention 3 or 4 things that Peja did that was completely different, that goes against fundamentals. He's one of the best shooters of all time. So some guys, you let it right out because they made it to the NBA. And there's other guys that you do have to tweak a little bit. And with Devin, it's not so much the arc, it's where he's shooting from. So court vision, look, that's going to come with time. Davion's did not come until he got extended run in his final season here in Sacktown. Hey, speaking of extended run, you get another show tonight. Napes coming up 8 o'clock. Make sure you join him. I will not be with him tonight, but I'll pop in, make sure the link is in the chat. He's taking your calls and talking about the Kings, talking about the NFL. A lot of news going on there. Jeff Ulbricht's son he's fined, $250,000 for the prank call that his son made to Shadir Sanders. How about that? The John Elway news. That's scary. And I wonder, and I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but you got to wonder if there's going to be any type of investigation there. Coming back from a party. I hope, I don't want anybody to ever pass away. Ever. ever, ever, ever. I wish that wouldn't have happened, but like best case scenario here is maybe he had some type of medical emergency, and that's what caused him to fall out of the golf cart. Because if it's not, if you're driving on a public roadway, you're coming back from a party. I am not presuming, I am not reporting that John Elway had any alcohol in his system, but I'm saying theoretically, those things are served at parties. You wonder about that. I hope none of that comes into play, and this is just a tragic accident, but this story could take a completely different turn. It's very, very sad. Incredibly sad. Falls out of the golf cart, hits his head on the concrete, put on life support, 62 years old, passes away. Very, very sad. Very sad. Doug needs to fly in John Stockton. Yeah. No, hey, you know, Keon and Keegan handles. Devin Carter handles as well. That's what they need. Handles. Hey, appreciate all you. We are not on the air tomorrow. King's Court. No King's Court tomorrow. However, probably going to get an 8 o'clock show with Napes and I together. But before all that, tonight, Grant, 8 p.m., join him. Hope you all have a great rest of the day. We're still going to have a ton to talk about here in the coming days, waiting for the Doug Christie press release and announcement, and see if we get a press conference for that. Warriors Rockets tonight, heated series. That one's back in Houston, getting ready. Actually just tipped off just a few minutes ago. And you got Timberwolves Lakers. Can the T-Wolves close out the Lakers tonight? Grant, 8 p.m. Go Kings, light the beam. Thanks for joining us. Court's dismissed.